Hello everybody, thank you for that amazing intro, Christian. Very happy to be here and speaking in front of you and in front of everybody over link. So we're here to talk a little bit of about AI, so let's just deep dive in directly. So see if this clicker should be working. So we'll be covering in these 40 minutes 5 topics. This is the agenda. Short introduction to me and our company, so you know who's in front of you speaking. And then a bigger picture of AI, where we are today with AI, where we're going in 2024 and how to get going now. And last but not least, also the challenges of AI. So let's just deep dive in. So, a little bit about me. I sometimes start from the right side. I've been in tech for 30 years. I've been lucky enough to start coding early enough. So 1994, I'm originally from Bosnia. I came to Sweden, so I grew up here in Sweden. I got introduced to the computers for the first time here. Thank you, Sweden, for that. And as it was in the forefront, as it still is, when it comes to being very competitive in the digital landscape. So I actually started coding because, as my kids, you start playing games, and then I got very curious about how to build my own games. So that's how I landed into the world of programming at the age of 7 with QBasic. Actually downloaded the source code for Snake, if you all remember back in the day, in QBasic, and studied it. But the way I started was a little bit different because as we just arrived, my parents couldn't afford a computer at that point, so I actually had to start coding on pen and paper at home, and then I was typing everything in school 3 times a week until I got my first game going. And after that, the school kind of noticed it as all the kids started playing it. It said made by Arli Mujkic on the screen, so it wasn't so hard to figure out, as there are not a lot of Arli Mujkic yet today. And school was amazing because then they supported with a computer, so I could actually continue coding after that. So been coding for a long time. We fast forward 7 years, and there I went from 2D games, 2D development, to 3D games and 3D development. That's when I started my first company at the age of 14. Trivision 3D LLC in the US, together with Sylvain Dupont and John Hart, which was a 3D software development kit. So quite advanced programming already at 14. And we kind of started as a hobby project, which was a little bit funny because you don't think about selling software when you're 14, it's just a hobby. But we ended up creating a company out of it, thanks to John, and started selling licenses. And that's how I started making my first money on software. I even have my first green check, $500 check from the US, still saved. So that's a little bit of a funny story. After that, I continued on, made my first exit when I was 19, and then became a serial entrepreneur. That I really knew at that point that I could really combine my passion of tech into also making it into a living, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Being a serial tech entrepreneur, basically paving the way up until today. So today, 2023 and forward, as we founded oodash, I devote my next 30 years, as I sometimes say, into the future, which is focusing on AI and the future of technology. So that's a little bit short of on my background. So, oodash, we're a Nasdaq-listed software as a service company, and we traded here in Stockholm on First North, but also in Setra, Frankfurt, and Stuttgart Börse. And yeah, we focus on working with companies when it comes helping them with their AI setup, data, infrastructure, vision, mission, strategy, and so on. So, this is what we offer. We work with expert services. We have our own data lakehouse. We work with Query Gateway, which is our API to access unstructured, semi-structured, unstructured data if in your company through a structured way, leveraging AI. It gets a little bit technical, but in short, then we have a business intelligence platform on top of that, which makes it very easy for people to talk to their data, basically. So you can imagine if you have all of these different systems that you have today in the company, connecting them. We have support for over 300 different data sources, connecting them to one place. It goes through our secret sauce, the magic that we do, putting it into our vector databases with metadata, then allowing you basically to build your dashboards, talk to it by using simple AI chat, for example, asking it what are the most active periods when broken down by hour in the company, and then you get a nice graph because it understands what you want from all of your data. So that's a little bit what we do and our platform. Let's dive right in. So AI, what is AI? Just to give that first very, very simple definition. Basically, it's the machine's ability to mimic a human. That's it. It's not harder than that. But what does that really mean if we boil it down? what makes us human? It's to being able to learn, understand, reason, plan, and solve problems, right? So a computer, up until, if we remove the artificial intelligence, and the computer can only do what you instruct it to do. You tell it an algorithm, or you build a program, etc. Artificial intelligence is about it becoming more like us, which is taking on problems as they come, learning from your own mistakes, learning from others' mistakes, and being able to reason and plan and solve those problems along the way. So that's really what AI is about. And we're moving very fast, so I'm going to go a little bit brief into the history. So AI has been here. It goes way back, right? So if we talk about Alan Turing, which sometimes is known as the grandfather of modern computer science, right? He already published the computing machinery and intelligence, and we also, maybe many of you know about the Turing test, which is the way that we perform tests today to see if a computer or an artificial intelligence is a computer, or if it's thinking like a human. So that goes way back, right? So it's been around for quite some time. But if we kind of go through these steps, what has happened since then is that 97, we had the first person to lose their job to an AI, which was Grand Chess Master Kasparov, right? He lost to Deep Blue, and that was a big, big moment. So I think, all of this fear about people talking about will we lose our jobs or not, etc. I mean, Kasparov is embracing AI, even though he was the first one to lose his job to it. And I think that's kind of funny to think about. I mean, and that goes back to 97, right? And if we make another leap to 2016, we'll see that it became quite more, because AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol, so the champion when it comes to Go, also lost at this. And why is this interesting? Because Go has more combinations in the game than we have atoms in the visible universe. And that's quite interesting to see, because then it's already was on a very high computational level when it came to the neural networks of how it's thinking, and getting closer and closer to being more human. And as I mentioned before, what is AI? It is its ability to think like a human. After that came the very, very famous 2017 paper, Attention is All You Need. And this is really what catapulted us forward. Because up until that point, we've been building what's called neural networks. And this is how our brain works. We have neural network pathways, and that's what we have been trying to build in the computer brain, so to speak. And there was a big problem with that for a long time, and it was memory, right? So when you put in a lot of text, the computer would start to forget kind of what was in the beginning. An example of that is if somebody says, or I would tell it, I grew up in Sweden, I like to play tennis, I like to play the guitar, spend time with my family, and talk about it, and I'm fluent in. And now the AI should be able to, fluent in this language, and the AI should be able to predict what the next word is, because AI is only predicting what the next word is, right? The former first versions of neural networks were not able to do that if the context became too long, because it would forget kind of what was in the beginning. It was like a goldfish, so to speak. So what transformers really did was to make that goldfish into more of a young person's ability, right? This is saying that, okay, let's increase the memory span. So then it was suddenly able to predict and say, look, I've told it all about these things, and I'm fluent in, and it could actually say Swedish, because it understood that I grew up in Sweden. Even though I told it a bunch of other things, it knew what would come. And this is what Transformers really wrote about 2017, but it was all theoretical, and it was Google researchers that did it. And it's a little bit funny because Google is not the forefront leading on AI today, but they wrote a big study on transformers. And it's really because these guys in Google, when they wrote it, they thought, we got this and nobody else got this, because we wrote it. So we don't have to hurry, right? But what was happening is that there was a lot of other smart people around in the world, as there are, that really read this study and said, maybe we can do something out of it. So OpenAI started introducing the transformers into their work, kind of a little bit under the radar initially. And then suddenly, as we say, the fast pace of generative, then 2020 OpenAI released the GPT-3. And this is where increased interest in the large language models started to come, but mostly from the tech-savvy people, right? But then 2021, we started to see text-to-image models. So all of these images started showing up, even in professional media outlets, but also on social media. So people started buzzing about and saying, wow, AI can really generate some really cool images. That's good and bad, because it can generate some cool stuff, but it can also create, dangerously detailed fake images and so on. So this is how kind of it started coming out into the public face and public side. So into the public domain. So what then happened really is, and I think we all hopefully know about it, is 2022 OpenAI launches then ChatGPT 3.5. And this is when we say then suddenly, right? This is the iPhone moment of AI. It's like Jensen, which is the CEO of NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, you might know it as a graphic processor, graphic cards for playing games, but it's actually the GPUs are used to train the AI models, right? We are in the beginning of the iPhone moment, and it's a little bit funny because I've been saying exactly the same thing for at the same time when it released, and I think many people have been saying the same thing. But if you think about it, it's just as when Apple and the iPhone changed the smartphone market, OpenAI with ChatGPT 3 changed the way we think about and use AI. So people started quickly realize that it's here to stay, and that it's not science fiction anymore. It's not something you see in the movies, So there is a moment before the iPhone, and there is a moment after the iPhone. I think everybody here remembers the moment before iPhone. So this is a little bit where we are at today with AI. So we could not foresee how the iPhone would change our lives, but we knew that it would. Many of us saw that. We knew that this is going to be a game changer. Today, looking back, we can see in all of the aspects it has done that, right? Through job, through work, through on the personal, social level, etc. So I believe that looking back in 10 years in the same way, we'll be able to see, okay, we knew that something would change, but in 10 years we'll really be able to see and say, this has had great impact. A little bit interesting. So the incredible quick adoption rate, we have seen nothing like it so far, right? So if we look at how long time it took ChatGPT to reach 1 million users, it took it 5% of time it took Instagram to reach 1 million users. And Instagram was a company that was sold for $1 billion with, 15 employees or something like that. So we're talking about something that feels very magical for people in a way, because you're talking to something, you're asking it to help something, and you just don't know how can it do this, right? So you go back and back and back because there is just something there. So we have to think about that a little bit for a minute. I mean, it reached 1 million users very fast. Nothing like compared to the other platforms or softwares we have seen out there. And 1 year later now in November, we see over 100 million active users on the platform per week. Not per month, per week. That's amazing. We're talking only ChatGPT, not other services, not Microsoft Copilot, nothing else. We're talking only ChatGPT. So there is something there. With this kind of traction, that means that we are here in an era, iPhone moment, as I mentioned, something big is going on, and we can all feel it and we can all see it. Now the question is, what can we do with it, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, where are we today? The smart AI is already here, and it will only get smarter, as I mentioned. So it's not a question if, it's a question of when. Is it 6 months? Is it 18 months? It all depends really when ChatGPT wants to release their new version. But if we look at if we look at Terence Tao, for example, Terence Tao is one of the leading mathematicians in the world today, with awards won all across the globe for his knowledge in maths and what he has brought to the table, to that segment. William James Sidis is often known as the smartest man that ever lived, right? He knew to speak over 25 languages. And if we compare that to GPT-4 and even Gemini, we can really see that the amount of languages they're able to handle the AIs today. And we're just 1.5 years in from the launch of ChatGPT 3.5. But not to mention the amount of books it has read. We are already at an unbelievable level where we look at, AI versus genius. Where are we going with this, right? And there's a saying also that this is the worst it will ever be. So it will only get better from this on, right? So it's an interesting thing that you can also run AI on your local computers, for example, today quite easily. So if I would run up my computer and ask it to process some books, it can actually read in less than 24 hours more books than I can read in my whole lifetime. But it's still, remember, it's just a tool. So it really becomes out of AI what you can do out of AI, right? So this is also something that we will talk about. But why are people talking about it so much today? Well, it's obvious. Anything that has such great impact, people will be talking. Anything that feels so magical as it does, we will be talking about it, right? The potentials are huge. I mean, we're looking at it bringing into the economy $2.6 to $4.4 trillion per year. This is the estimates today, and they keep on growing because there are new and new things coming out every day in AI. So, and the interesting thing is that I think that this second sentence is even more interesting, is that if we introduced AI into existing processes, existing companies, existing software systems, we could double that impact. So that means that we are looking at all of the new AI companies coming and all the new AI things that we will be doing. But if we could also start integrating AI into all of the existing stuff we're doing, we could really, really see a huge impact. So what does that mean? I mean, AI technology is set out to automate 60 to 70% of all working activities, which is a huge amount if you think about that a little bit. So all working time globally, all working activities globally, 60 to 70%. So go, okay, what will I do with all that free time, right? So there will be some kind of offset in a lot of the working activities we do. Not necessarily in the work that people will be replaced, but we will be working differently, we believe. But we're also looking that we will reach half of that. So this is a general technology estimate over time, but a decade earlier than we previously predicted. So that means that we will be reaching half of these activities, somewhere 30 to 35% already in the very near time. We're talking somewhere between 2030 and 2060. So let's say 2040, 2045, 35% of global all work activity will be automated by AI. And that's something to really think about a little bit. So things will change. In what way? It really is a little bit in our hands, but you know, it is coming. It's being done already. Let's do a quick audience check. So a question, how do you think that generative AI will affect the workforce in your company in the next 5 years? So you can raise hands when I point. Number one, not at all. Anybody thinks it's not going to affect nothing in 5 years? That's what I thought. Nobody. Online, I don't know, but I probably know what is raising there. But the more interesting question is the second two ones, right? Who believes that we will hire more people because of AI in the workforce where they're working today? Hands up. Okay, okay. And then the third one, who believes we will reduce the number of coworkers? So more people think we will reduce the number of coworkers. So there is actually a study made on this, on a Strato study that asked these questions. And what I think is really interesting here is that 75% of people think it will not change anything or they don't know. 75%, that's a huge amount. So it's so new that people still don't know, but we know it's going to do something, but there's still a lot of people that believe that it's not going to do anything at all. I mean, we know it's going to, but a lot of, in general, people don't believe anything else. So there is still a maturity coming when it comes to the information trickling out there throughout the companies. And what I think is funny in this, interesting in this study is that 75% nothing at all or I don't know. And then let's look at the quite new news coming out from Klarna just on the 4th of March, saying that their AI assistant is now doing the job of 700 people. That's 15 to 20% of their work activity. Remember we said it's going to be reaching somewhere globally 60 to 70%. We believe maybe 35% if we introduce it in existing company processes. Well, they're on the good way. So there are plenty of other companies we're doing. They're one of these leaders that are already starting to do it, obviously, because they're a tech company as well. But if you think about AI in all of the existing companies, there's a lot of things that are going to be happening. So on top of that, if we look, did you know that only 25% of Swedish companies invest in generative AI compared to 43% globally? Which is a little bit interesting because Sweden, and I think in Nordics in general, third most competitive country in the world when it comes to digital competency. Third. But we're investing almost half in AI because 75% people don't think anything is going to change. I don't know if it's why, but that's why we are here to talk about it. Because it is here to change things around. And there is still a lot of room to do quite some exciting things because only 25% of companies today are investing into AI. So yeah. The point of this being is today, the large language models, as they're called, the AI models that have really catapulted this, they're smarter than we think. They're much, much smarter than what people think. But it's still a tool. So again, I said it's the worst it will ever be, but unless you know how to use it, it will not be much more than what you make out of it, right? So that's also an important thing to understand. So we might be at almost a human expert level, right? And we will be surpassing that with GPT 4.5 and 5 whenever they release it, if it's now in this year or next year. But the point here today is that it's already smarter than we think. That's a little bit what I want you to go away with. But it's really not more than what you make out of it, right? It's very hard to imagine where we'll be just in a couple of years, right? So if we think about that, I wanted to, on this slide, when it comes to a study, they took the 700 best of the best experts at Boston Consulting Group, and they increased their performance using AI with an average of 38%. So it's really out to get us all. I mean, nobody's safe. You can be the expert in the best of the best, or you can be not the expert in the best of the best. It doesn't really matter. So even the best of the best increased their efficiency by using it. And we added here three simple tasks, which I think 99% of people in the audience and on the link are probably doing every day or at least weekly at their work, which is writing some kind of draft, summarizing maybe some kind of meeting, and searching for information. And if we look at just these three tasks, where there's been a lot of study made, and you also can see using, for example, Microsoft Copilot, we're looking at a time saving of 44 minutes, right? That's quite a bit. That's already quite a bit. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think it's the worst it will ever be, and you think where we got after only after 1 year, these 44 minutes can pretty quickly turn into 440 minutes, and so on and so on. So that's the whole point. Same thing like an iPhone moment. This is cool, I can pinch and zoom in on web pages, because that was a cool feature back in the day. The websites weren't responsive, right? So one of the key elements was zooming in on a web page and being able to do that. But today everything is adapted for the smartphone, and we're using it in a completely different way than what we thought was really cool in the beginning. So these are the lowest hanging fruits of what can be done. And as I said, the best of the best, even when they are using it, they're still saving time. So yeah, that's a little bit where we are today. Next topic will be about 2024. So get going now and how, right? So, so when to start with AI? There's a Chinese proverb that says, when is the best time to plant a tree? It's 20 years ago. What's the second best time? It's now. So we have an oodash saying that says, when is the best time to start using AI? Well, it was before ChatGPT, but the second best time is now. It's really the same thing, right? So the point of it being, you can't build a house without the foundation first, right? So you have to first start looking at educating yourself within AI. So this is really understanding what can it do for us. I showed you a couple of easy tasks, but there's a lot of information out there. So it's first of all going out and grabbing that information and educating yourself on, because AI is only a tool. So whoever is worried that AI will replace humans, it's not going to replace humans anytime soon, but humans using AI will replace other humans. And this is also something to think about. So it's really starting on thinking about how can we as an organization, and you as every individual, start by educating yourself to understand it, and then to really work from there. Again, to build a house, you start with the foundation, right? Also important is to dig where the gold is, not where the light is, as they also say. So I would say that look at where the largest return of investments are, potentials in your companies, in your lives, where AI can be as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be only in work. And also look at what are the most important improvements you maybe are already doing and deciding on in the company, because as I mentioned before, implementing AI in existing processes, existing software, can double the impact. So question is, can AI be maybe used there? You know? So can we ask questions? Yeah, sure.
Which industry or industries do you think will be mostly affected short term from AI? In which industries, like the Nordics, where will we see a big impact?
Well, what we can see today, one of the biggest impacts we're seeing is, for example, with on the customer support side, as one, for example, with Klarna handling a lot of big volumes of customer support. But we do have, for example, where you can get going now and how within different departments and everything from HR to project management and to software engineering, for example. So I think that it will be affecting quite broadly, and we will go in a little bit of concrete examples of what we think will be what we think could be good starting points from our point. But yeah, this is you know, if there's already projects within the company you decided to do, maybe AI can be used there. This is a little bit to think about as well. It doesn't have to be a completely new project, right? So it's also important to think about if many parts of the organization take a single step in their own part, you move forward as a whole, right? So a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and I think this is important. It doesn't have to be this huge project. It's just enough to start somewhere and start doing something, right? So starting small and showing proof, it motivates. I sometimes say it's kind of like, you know, you want to get in better shape. The first step is to go buy a gym membership. And then you have it, and then you're paying it, and you say, okay, now I have to go. And you go one time, and then, okay, oh, do I really have to go 2 or 3 times? I don't want to. But then you start seeing maybe some muscle, maybe you start feeling better. You suddenly see I'm not out of air when I go up the stairs, two staircases. Maybe I will go one more time, and maybe I will go one more time. So it really is finding those proof of the projects where you're using AI. It's not the scale, it's really the motivation and, of course, the finances and the data logic behind to invest in those projects. So really how to get started, we say think big, start small, and scale fast. And with the proven case in hand, then you can make it omnipresent in the organization in several places with small. So we also say sometimes nail it and then scale it, right? So make sure you start somewhere and start doing something. And maybe looking at parts where you have already ongoing decisions, and can we integrate AI there in somehow. So we have 4 examples of Get Going Now. We took in general four different departments, so to speak, let's say executive leadership. So what you can do is to define your AI strategy and vision, which we have been working, for example, with Sergel on doing. And then you can assess your current capabilities. Really, this is also going back a little bit to the education part and looking at, okay, so we can define it, or find somebody to help you define it, and then assess your capabilities of being able to do that. And then, promote cross-department collaboration. So once the one department says, okay, we want to do something with AI, look at maybe there's some other department that can also start doing it. So again, think big, start small, and then scale it. If we look at an example from an HR perspective, it's very, very important, as I said, the foundation. Without the foundation, you cannot build a house. So HR should be pushing out AI literacy, culture of AI, removing anxiety about AI, removing the feeling that will AI replace me? And going out and say, okay, we don't intend to replacing people with AI. We want to educate you in AI and becoming really a company that is using AI to increase our performance, efficiency, and so on and so on. So to do that, you have to invest in the teams. You have to invest in the people in the company through culture, data literacy, but also to build skilled teams, right? Maybe there are some people in your companies that have an extra passion for AI and would like to be part of an AI team to figure out what could we use AI for in our company. You have to find also those stars that might be leading the company forward. They will be spending a lot of time probably also outside of working hours reading up, thinking about how can we use AI in our company, because it's a very interesting and exciting topic, and there's a lot of people out there that find it so fascinating that they would like to be in a special, let's say, AI team or skill team. So that's something that also from HR perspective could be done and set up. And of course to promote diversity and inclusion in AI teams, so having different perspectives. So let's not just put the engineers in the AI team and say, hey, you go and think about what we can do with AI. Bring everybody in. Let everybody have their say. This is very important. Otherwise, you're just going to get back and say, we're going to change our database to this. And okay, what will that do? Yeah, we can do some cool stuff now with it because data is now stored in an AI database. Okay, but what does that mean for our business? We don't know, but it's really cool to store it like that. Okay, so you have to have all aspects of it, right? So this diversity in the AI team is very, very important, right, for building up. And of course, IT and data management, develop a data strategy. So going back to this database, which I was joking a little bit about, but also is looking at where do we store our data, how do we store it? As I mentioned before, our data lakehouse, for example, we are focused on being GDPR with on-premise server hosting, GDPR, secure, abiding by all laws and so on, and we store structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data. That doesn't say a lot, right? It's really how you use it afterwards. So you have to have something else on top of that. What do you want to integrate to that? Do you want an AI letter answering service, or do you want an AI customer service chatbot? Do you want an AI dashboard for your partners? There has to be a product somewhere. But it all starts with having data stored somewhere in a proper way that's also secure. So really get going with your IT and data management to think about and develop a strategy. And developing a strategy can just be putting it on paper to have it as a first step. Remember that gym membership I said to buy? The first step, getting the strategies and ideas down on paper into a document is a good first step. And then you can decide when we execute what we execute. Of course, selecting the right technology and right partners is very important as well. So I would say to not rush into that, really take your time to look into who is a good fit for your company. Partners, as we know, are very important. Once you go in together with a partner, you have to look at it as a long-term relationship. So that's, of course, a very important part. And then, of course, establish governance and ethical guidelines. So what kind of data do we store? I mean, today in company systems, you have a bunch of different systems. So what should we store? Maybe there are things we don't need to store just for the sake of it, right? So again, going back and putting this down into plans and paper, writing it down. So, and last but not least, project management. Pilot projects, as I mentioned, maybe there are pilot projects or other projects you're doing. Maybe one of those could be an AI pilot project. Or whatever it is, we're improving our logistic process. Okay, can we add AI in that? Maybe there's another 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5% to shave off on cost or increase bottom line or whatever it is. Getting that motivation of doing things, it's really important. And then scale and integrate after that, right? So coordinate the expansion of successful AI applications. If you see that we can save 3% on a small department in Sweden, but it's a bigger company, then you start rolling it out in several places. And of course, data. So to monitor, measure, and refine always is very, very important. So a little bit about the challenges of AI and challenges of potential in the future, right? So to talk about that as well, I think that's an important topic. So ethical and societal impact. There's a lot of talk about this, and I think it's a very important topic, addressing bias, privacy, and the divide in AI that exists. People are very worried about the ethical side of it, and I don't have the answers for that. I only know it is a real topic, and it's a topic we need to discuss. It's like when internet came out, there was no laws about internet. So today we have a bunch of laws on internet, so it will come, but it is important to discuss those topics and think about those topics to see how we can mitigate any issues and find solutions, right? AI and job displacement is a very big thing. There are a lot of people going around and being worried that they will be replaced by AI. So again, going back to, for example, education within the organization to remove that anxiety and say, we don't intend to replace people with AI, but we want our people to be using AI as it's just a tool. So we want us to become better at that. And then, of course, global inequities. So the uneven distribution of AI benefits. There are places in the world, of course, that have more access to infrastructure than others. And so, this is also a challenge in the future. How can we develop the whole world towards a more AI-compatible future? So there's a very interesting, Goldman Sachs predicted that 300 million people will be somehow offset in their job by AI by the coming 5 years. 300 million people. That's a lot. That's so much that will that initiate riots? Will that initiate political changes, laws changes? What will happen? We don't really know, but there's a lot of things going on right now with that. So it's very important also to think about those challenges, right? Of course, security and privacy, enhancing your AI system to prevent attacks. I already met a couple of people that got phone calls in the voice of their daughter or in the voice of their mother saying, I'm somewhere, can you please send me money, etc., etc. And they were super freaked out by that. So it's really, again, going back to this awareness that, AI is here, it will do a lot of good, but it can also do a lot of harm. But it's the same way like when the internet came. It can do a lot of good, but it can also do a lot of harm. Same thing with the iPhone. So we cannot stop the development of technology forward, in my belief, but we have to discuss the potential problems that can arise out of it to be able to really find solutions, laws, mitigate problems, and so on. Regulation and governance. So EU is regulating a lot, as we know. And yeah, there are talks about everywhere in the world how to regulate it. But again, going back, we don't really know how it will be regulated, but that it has to be in many ways. That is a fact. And dependency of autonomy. So maintaining human oversight. I think this is very important for quite some time going in the future now. Right, so that's some of the challenges in the future on when it comes to data security. Integration, implementation challenges. The last one I would say here to go through. Overcoming obstacles in adapting AI into existing systems and workflows. Data quality and availability is also very important, as I mentioned before. Is the data there? If it's not there, there's not so much to do. So maybe the first step is to make sure that data is coming in and that's there, but also relevant data. Let's not just maybe pour in everything and give the AI everything if that's not something we want, right? So things to think about. You can make it easy for you to say, we have all this data, let's just put it in the AI. But the question is, do we need to put everything in the AI? That's also something to think about. And explainability and transparency. So making the AI decision process more clear to know really in the end who made that decision. Was it you? Was it the AI? Was it us together? We have to know, because in the end, if you start acting on decisions, there's nothing wrong in making bad decisions, but you have to know if there was bad decisions made, who made them, so that you can go back, figure out, and really come to the root cause of that, and then kind of reiterate, right? If we just let everything to the AI, that kind of loses as well. So, perfect. We're just about to wrap up on time. Good. 3 key takeaways from today I want to mention just really quickly. Think big, as I mentioned. Start small and scale fast. Or sometimes easy to say, nail it and then scale it. Take that gym membership, start somewhere. And then you will see you get motivated more and more. The second one is start now, not later, as I mentioned. Don't wait. This will develop, things will change, but start now with something. Look, there's Microsoft Copilot, there are some services we can help you in your daily work to save some time on drafting that email or maybe summarizing that meeting or searching for some information. And already there you will start to see some data back. And also, as I mentioned, only 25% have started. So starting now means you're a little bit ahead of the curve. Still. And last but not least, education and literacy, and competency about AI. Build that competency, build that knowledge and know-how within your organization around AI. Maybe have an AI event like Sergel is doing, which I think is amazing. Maybe have somebody come there, speak about it, make something, introduce it. So that's a little bit from me, and if you want to stay ahead with AI, feel free to reach out or come up and have a little bit speak. And thank you very much for your time and listening.
Arli, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for you.
Yes.
In the 80s, the first search engines appeared, but it was more of an experiment or a mistake derived from other things. And that developed into more modern versions. We saw Yahoo, and eventually we got Google. And Bing still trying to push their way in, but nobody wants it. So Google, it works, right? Now we have ChatGPT, and it's 3.5 and 4, and that's taking more and more place. When will they change the name? it's so hard to say all the
I know,
time.
yeah, I know.
I mean, you spent about 5% of the presentation just saying that word.
Yeah.
No, I saw Gemini. Is that the next?
Gemini is coming from Google. So if we look at going back to search engine, I think this is very interesting. I used Alta Vista to download the source code for Snake the game in QBasics. So that's where I started. And Alta Vista doesn't exist today, but at the same time, it was still and still is close to my heart because that's how I started going in, and things will change. How we search for today will, in my belief, definitely change. Gemini with Google, we're looking at ChatGPT. They don't have their own search engine, but Microsoft Bing is using that. I think that the search will become more like a chat, but you're going back to the same place. You will go to Google still, probably, in my belief, but you're not going to search and look at those 10 results and maybe click the next page and try to see it, but rather that it comes up directly with the answers where you need, which also opens a lot of other questions about how do we start and change our marketing so that we become relevant and come into that answer. Search engine optimization will completely change. So the marketing agencies will need to adapt, and everybody will need to change. But yeah, I think that's a very good comparison to going from search engines, and that it is in a way, many ways, a tool to search for information, and that it will start to integrate within the search engines deeper and deeper.